Barb Hansen with His Seattle, and this training video is about review. And the concepts are taken from this book called The 7 Laws of Teaching by John Milton Gregory. John Milton Gregory wrote this book in 1884 for Sunday school teachers. This book illustrates his love for teaching and the Word of God, and it is excellent. In 1917, it was revised by a group of men who secularized it and took out all references of God, Jesus Christ, and the Word of God. So if you get a copy, make sure you get the unabridged original copy written by Gregory. This book was published by Veritas Press. Now, you don't have to purchase this book for next year. I just recommend that sometime in your homeschooling journey, and hopefully early on when you have young children, you read this book because it will make you a better teacher. I really feel strongly that homeschool moms should really strive to be the best teacher they can be. And any way that they can do that and improve, I'm all for it. And so in his ministries, we've used this book many times as a part of our training in the summer. And so the concepts in this book are timeless. So review is an important part of the learning process. In fact, if students can't summarize the lesson that you've just done, they can't tell you back, they can't answer the questions, you can't say that they really have learned. One of the ways to review is at the beginning of every class, review the week before. So this is how I did it, and there's lots of different ways to do it. This is just what I like to do. I had a poster that was for each week. Week 1, for example, would have at the top week 1, and then it would have the pictures of the great men and women from that week. It would have some key dates, and also it would have on the back, it would have the sound off. And so what I would do is just say, let's talk about what we learned in last week in week 1, and then I'd go over it. And then as the weeks progressed, week 2, week 3, I'd always go back and say, let's look at what we learned week 1. Let's look at what we learned week 2. And I would quickly do a review, ask a few questions about each week. Not really long, just short, so that it's always being brought up to the children, what have we been learning about? Another way of reviewing is after each presentation, teaching presentation, that you just ask a few questions to see that the information clicked. Just see what the students remember. So that's another thing to do, and I really encourage you to do that. Another way of review is the review game. Usually, this is a required part of his ministries, that you have some kind of review game during the day. Most moms do it at the end of the day, the last few minutes, where they have some game format ready to go to play with the students. So here's some ideas that are these are just a few: bingo, tic-tac-toe, hangman, baseball, Jeopardy, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Can use game show kind of formats. Team games are always great. And here's the reason why teams are a great review. It doesn't put any one student on the spot, especially early on when the first couple weeks, students are still getting familiar with the material. They don't feel a lot of pressure, and they can work as a team, and they can come up with the answer to the question as a team. What I would do after I was done teaching for a particular week, I would make sure that I summarized all my teaching, and I wrote questions out with the answers so that I could use that the next week for my review game. so that by the end, now you have 10 weeks, by the end you'll have 10 review sheets that you can use for questions. Another thing that I think is really important is that you review at home. I kept a big notebook with all the sound offs, and I used those as a review with my kids, and I would keep them I put every year in, and would have all the years in a notebook. And what I would do in the morning, sometimes before we would start, I would just ask them a few questions. Chemistry questions, history questions, physics questions, biology questions, and get my kids to really think about the things that we had been learning over the years. And this really helps so that when we do the 4-year cycle and we're coming back around again, and if you've been reviewing, then they can take that information and even go deeper than they would if you just never brought it up again. So again, review, review, review. It's very important, and it's something we need to build in His Ministries, and something that we can all continue to grow in as teachers as we learn to ask those really good review questions to our students. Thank you.